Welcome to another edition of Ask Isaiah. It's your host Isaiah Rhodes. And on this episode, I'm going to give you a recap of the Philadelphia 76ers 133-132 overtime victory over the Charlotte Hornets. The Sixers survived a tremendous comeback by the Hornets. They were up by as many as 21, and the Hornets came back and took a 5-point lead with a minute remaining. But great defense from Robert Covington in a huge fourth quarter from Joel Embiid salvaged that fourth quarter and took it into OT with some great execution down the stretch. Now, if you look at what the Sixers were able to do to start the game, they were able to get out in the fast break and really, take control of the rebounding, especially on the offensive glass, to get extra opportunities. Kemba Walker continued his struggling from the field in the first three quarters. A lot of that had to do with Robert Covington and the different looks that the Sixers were throwing at Kemba. In the first matchup, even though Kemba scored 37 points, he shot 11 of 31 from the floor and three of 15 from three. He started the game tonight shooting 2 of 15, and that was just an unfortunate. Even though that was an unfortunate start, Kemba is the ultimate gamer, and as the game got tight, and as Philadelphia went through multiple droughts in this game, I mean, they went through droughts of 5 minutes and 6 minutes, two different droughts. Uh, the the uh, the Charlotte Hornets stayed the course. They were able to attack and get Philadelphia in foul trouble, specifically Covington and Embiid. And in doing so, they were able to get to the line, see the ball go on the rim, and gain some rhythm. More than anything, though, Philadelphia continued to turn over the ball at the worst times. Um, in terms of how they protected the ball today, if you look at the totals, it didn't look as bad. 16 turnovers over an overtime game, 48 minutes plus five, 53 minutes. It doesn't seem as bad, but it's the timing of certain turnovers that allowed Charlotte to get back in the game. In terms of how the game started, the first quarter, both teams put up 33 points, and when I mentioned Philadelphia's fast breaks, what Charlotte was able to do was utilize the 3-point variety early to keep up with Philadelphia. So while Philadelphia was scoring a lot of twos, Charlotte would shave points off with the three. But then the second quarter, they were able to get out and run. I mentioned the rebounding disparity, especially in that second quarter, on second chance variety, and Philadelphia was able to jump out to a 15-point lead. They forced they forced Charlotte into shooting 5 of 23 from the floor in the second quarter, while Philadelphia in their own right shot 12 of 25. So it was that efficiency plus um, plus suffocating defense against Charlotte that allowed them to jump out to that lead. At that point, Embiid, he was relatively not quiet, but he because of the balanced scoring at that point, Dario Saric came out scoring. JJ was putting up buckets. Uh, Markel Fultz was contributing in terms of being a facilitator. These things were happening in the midst of Philadelphia making their run, so it wasn't necessarily one player taking over at that time. But as the second half wore on, you started to see some slippage from Philadelphia in terms of turnovers, and Charlotte outscored them by 35 points. In terms of how Charlotte was able to shoot, I mentioned Kemba Walker is struggling from the field, but as a unit, Charlotte shot 16 of 40 from three. They got some timely baskets, specifically from Malik Monk and Jeremy Lamb, to really get that run started in that third quarter. And once they were able to cut that deficit down, you saw Kemba Walker wake up in a way that most gamers do. He's an all-star caliber player. He's a he's a he's a quintessential scorer when times get tough, specifically for that Charlotte team. And as they were able to get back into the game, I mentioned the bench players, Malik Monk, the role player Jeremy Lamb. Also, Cody Zeller had a really. If you look at the box score, his numbers not gonna pop out at you tonight. He had 14 points and 4 rebounds, but his impact on the game was was something to behold in terms of getting the Sixers in foul trouble, getting tap outs in terms of offensive rebounds, just the little things, the epitome of a glue guy. He played that role tonight and really swung the game in Charlotte's favor, specifically in late third quarters going into the fourth. And once that happened, uh, I mentioned the droughts Philadelphia went on. They went on a 6 minute drought of no field goals. The only time they got points was at the free throw line. And a lot of that came from Joel Embiid once he came back in that fourth quarter. Uh, I mentioned Cody Zella's 14 points. I mentioned Jeremy Lin. He had 17 points. Michael Kidd Gilchrist also had 12 points. He had 12 rebounds. Willie Hernandez Gomez had 14 points, 4 rebounds. Malik Monk, who came on strong late in the game in terms of being a finisher. He was a part of that finishing group for the Hornets that took that lead and tried to bring it home for the Hornets. He had 12 points. But what Philadelphia was able to do, they rode their premier player and Joel Embiid. He took this game home. In the fourth quarter, once Kemba got hot and tried to steal that game, Kemba scored 19 points in that third quarter. 19 points. He came into the third quarter with 8 points. He scored 19 points in that third quarter, and the Sixers needed buckets fast. So they went to Joel Embiid. Embiid got to that line, got the rhythm going, and once that rhythm was going, then he started making shots in a way to protect Philadelphia. And despite Kimber's prolific scoring in that fourth, Embiid was able to get Charlotte in foul trouble, get him in the bonus early so that he was able to get to the line tonight. Embiid, he had 42 points, 18 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks. He was 11 of 18 from the floor, but he was 19 of 22 from the free throw line. So it was that pressure that allowed Philadelphia to make up for the flaws when they didn't have consistent scoring. And I also want to give a shout out to Ben Simmons, who I mentioned in the first half, Philadelphia getting out and running in the fast break, getting opportunities. A lot of those buckets came from Ben Simmons, who scored 10 points in the first half. He had at least three dunks, just getting out, leaking out, two-hand dunks, one-hand dunks. And when Ben Simmons scores, that's based off of him just attacking in that fast break. Any leak out opportunities Philadelphia can get. They try to get Ben in the open court and just get easy baskets. He was also able to find Dario Saric for some key 3 pointers that really got his rhythm going, and it's good to see him get going in terms of back-to-back games. He's coming off a big game against Indiana on Wednesday that helped the Sixers get their first road win of the season with a 100-94 victory over Indiana. Sharvage's performance, especially in the first 3 quarters, knocking down huge threes, put Philadelphia in a position to to lead early. But when Embiid took over that in that fourth quarter, it was something that they had. It was something that they were lacking during that stretch, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was on the bench dealing with foul troubles. I mentioned Cody Zeller getting into foul trouble. Just really not just him, but also Amir Johnson, uh, Markel Fultz. I mean, he was in every piece of contact that really swung the game. And when the game ended up going to OT, Kemba's scoring dissipated because Philadelphia emphasized getting the ball out of his hands, which put the ball in Malik Monk's hands late. Now Monk played solid, but he wasn't, and I won't even say he was scared. He was not scared at the moment. He was trying to do what was best for his team, but he wasn't comfortable in those situations. That's usually where Kemba shines, and the Sixers made it a concerted effort to get it out of his hands, and it worked to some degree. They forced Monk to take some shots. They forced Hernan Gomez to take some shots. Even Cody Zeller was forced to try to save Monk under the rim on a handoff that ended up being a turnover. So these are things that Philadelphia was able to utilize to get back into the game once the Hornets took the lead. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Robert Covington, who was in immense foul trouble tonight. He had 5 fouls. But when Charlotte came back and took the lead in that fourth quarter, Covington got some huge strips on Malik Monk in the fast break. It was a one-on-one. Monk with an opportunity to finish and probably seal the game for the Hornets. Um, Covington was able to get some strips off of Covington's leg that gave Philadelphia back to possession, that gave Embiid more opportunities to score, that put Philadelphia back in position to 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 push the game into OT and win the game. So much shout out to Robert Covington, who made it really difficult on Kemba Walker for 2 consecutive games so far this season. Tonight, Kemba scored 30, but he got his 30 points on 29 shots. He was 9 of 29. I mentioned him being a gamer, putting forth that effort that to get the Hornets back into the game and even give them the lead. But unfortunately, they didn't have it tonight because of Embiid's spectacular performance. 42 points, 18 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks. Ben Simmons, 22 points, 13 assists, 8 rebounds, one key block that sealed the game on a kickout from Malik Monk to Kemba Walker in the corner after Embiid pushed the lead to 132 to 130, 129. Big block by Embiid, a big block by Ben Simmons to seal the game. And at that point, it was but so much that Charlotte could do. Also, I want to point out. I mentioned Ben Simmons scoring. I want to point out that late in that OT, Ben was not afraid to attack that rim, and there was a bucket that he got with the game with the Sixers up to 129 to 127. He attacked the rim, went behind the back, took contact, and finished at the rim. Those are the dynamic scores that Joel Embiid needs on a consistent basis from a dynamic guard to take Philadelphia to the next level. Yes, Embiid scored 16 points in that fourth quarter to go head to head with Kemba Walker. But as a premier center, no matter how good you are, you need somebody to get you the ball. And as a scorer of that magnitude, teams are going to key in on you and make it very difficult for you to score. And if they know that you don't have the weapons on the outside to kick it out to and reestablish yourself in the post, they're going to make it very difficult on entry passes. And once you get it to those guys to reset you up, they're going to close out and make it difficult for those guys to score on a consistent basis. Most of what Philadelphia has is shooting, but their shooting is streaky at best. So Ben scoring late in that game showed the qualities that tandem can have if playing at that peak level. So Embiid having his 42 points, I'm not surprised at. But with Ben scoring 22 with key baskets down the stretch, 22 points, 13 assists, 8 rebounds, those are the things that the Sixers will look to. Although they blew a 21-point lead, the Sixers were up by as many as 22 in the second half. They blew a 22-point lead, excuse me, a 21-point lead to win that game the way they did. That was a playoff type style win. You have to salvage as many wins as possible, and to be 8-5 and try to get back into that conversation uh, with Boston and Toronto, and move ahead of and move and continue to move ahead of Indiana in the way that they did. Those are the things that are very important going forward. So Philadelphia got a huge win tonight. Big performance from Embiid. Tough defense from Covington. Great all-around play from Ben Simmons. Those are the things that are necessary to move forward. So Philadelphia in their next game, they will have uh, a matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow in a back-to-back, but they'll be in Memphis, so it'll be important to get out to a big start and continue to score early. They'll have to fight against the droughts. They have to find more consistent ways to score in the second half outside of Joel Embiid. That matchup with Marcus Gasol and Embiid will probably take a lot out of Embiid, so it'll be imperative for Ben Simmons, Fultz, Sharvich to get some easy baskets to take pressure off Embiid and continue to allow him to score. At this point in the season, prior to the 42-point game, he's averaging 27 points and 12 plus rebounds. Tonight, obviously, that's going to push his scoring even higher. So after tonight, we'll have the final averages, but not the final averages, but the up-to-date averages. Just seeing him score consistently, those are things that they could rely on that's going to travel. But you want to see Sharpish continue his momentum building shots. You want to see JJ continue to shoot. You want to see Covington continue to put forth a great defensive effort without fouling. Those things are necessary. Right now, the Sixers are dealing with an injury to Mike Muscala, who had not a head-to-head collision, but he had a collision with a teammate that forced him to get 6 stitches in his face, and he had to sit out tonight's game. There's no timetable of his return because his face has to actually be fitted for a face mask. So there's no timetable of his return right now. But him being down actually forced a change in Philadelphia's rotation. Usually he's the first big man off the bench, but um, the Sixers had to go to Bolden. Derek Bolden, who came in and he provided some quality minutes, but he's not really used to playing consistently like that. So that affected Philadelphia's rotation. Going out west, where they have bigger players, and in terms of on the front court, you have Gasol, you have what Memphis has in terms of their team. It's going to be interesting matchup, but I want to see can Philadelphia continue to build on what they had in the last 2 games. That being said, this is Ashley Isaiah's recap of the Philadelphia 76ers 133-132 victory over the Charlotte Hornets. You can check out my YouTube page to check out my live game commentary of the game. It went over 2 hours, so you can check it out. As the game got better, the commentary got better, of course. You can check that out on my YouTube page. You can check out my I can say my podcast on iTunes at Ask Isaiah NBA Podcast. This visual will be up on YouTube as well, this recap. So I'll have it on all platforms, YouTube, Apple, SoundCloud, everywhere. This is Ask Isaiah. This is your host Isaiah Rhodes. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ask Isaiah. Subscribe to my podcast, Ask Isaiah NBA Podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Ask Isaiah. Follow me on Instagram at Ask Isaiah. And tell a friend to tell a friend. Thanks for tuning in.